Welcome to the world of daily life stories. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss new stories. Enjoy listening. The unexpected encounter at the airport. Angela Carter's professional journey was a testament to resilience, intelligence, and the power of belief. As the president of Luminary Innovations, a trailblazing tech firm known for developing cutting-edge AI solutions, Angela's life was a whirlwind of corporate meetings, strategic planning, and decision-making. Her days often began before sunrise and ended late into the night, filled with the relentless demands of her industry. Despite the challenges, Angela thrived in this high-stakes environment. She had carved her space in the male-dominated tech world, proving herself as a leader, innovator, and visionary. On a crisp spring morning, Angela found herself navigating the bustling halls of Carson International Airport. Her itinerary was packed, as usual. A high-stakes meeting with a potential investor awaited her in New York City. This particular meeting was pivotal. The investor, Richard Hall, was known for backing companies poised for global domination, and his interest in Luminary Innovations signified the company's growing reputation. Angela was both excited and focused, her thoughts racing through her polished presentation slides and anticipated questions. The airport terminal was a sea of travelers, some dragging suitcases, others glued to their phones, and families herding children through security checkpoints. Angela moved through the crowd with practiced ease, dressed impeccably in a tailored navy blue suit that exuded professionalism. She walked with the poise of someone accustomed to commanding boardrooms and navigating challenges, her presence radiating confidence. Despite her composed exterior, Angela couldn't ignore the subtle tension that often accompanied her travels. As a Black woman in a position of power, she had encountered her share of microaggressions and prejudices. Her success had not come without battles, fighting to be heard in meetings, challenging biases, and proving her worth repeatedly in a world quick to underestimate her. These experiences had steeled her resolve, but they also served as constant reminders of the work still to be done. Angela entered the VIP lounge, a sanctuary of calm amid the chaos of the terminal. The room was an oasis for business travelers, offering plush seating, complimentary refreshments, and a hushed atmosphere. She approached the reception desk, where a young man greeted her with a professional smile. After confirming her access, she found a quiet corner to settle in, placing her laptop and documents on the small table before her. She sipped on a freshly brewed cup of coffee, allowing herself a moment to breathe and center her thoughts. As Angela reviewed her notes, she noticed a commotion nearby. A man in a crisp gray suit, accompanied by a flight attendant, was gesturing impatiently toward one of the lounge's employees. His voice, though low, carried an unmistakable edge of irritation. Angela glanced up briefly, recognizing the man as one of the lounge's frequent patrons, a senior executive in a global finance firm. She returned her attention to her work, dismissing the scene as another instance of misplaced frustration in a travel-weary passenger. Moments later, Angela became aware of someone standing beside her table. She looked up to find a woman in a staff uniform holding a tray of empty glasses. The woman smiled politely, but there was an unmistakable tension in her posture. "Excuse me, ma'am," the staff member said hesitantly, "but Mr. Ross over there seems to think you're part of our cleaning staff. He's asking if you could assist him with a spill near his seat." Angela blinked, momentarily stunned by the absurdity of the situation. She had encountered mistaken identities before, but this was a new low. For a moment, she considered ignoring the comment, focusing on her work, and letting the misunderstanding resolve itself. But then she glanced at the woman's anxious expression and the impatient executive across the room, whose eyes were now fixed on her with an air of expectation. She straightened her posture, her calm demeanor betraying none of the irritation bubbling beneath the surface. "I'm sorry," Angela said firmly but politely. "I'm not part of the cleaning staff. Perhaps Mr. Ross would like to address his concerns with the lounge manager." The staff member nodded quickly, relief washing over her face as she backed away to handle the situation. Angela returned to her laptop, but her focus was momentarily broken. She could feel the eyes of others in the lounge lingering on her, their expressions ranging from curiosity to mild embarrassment. She took a deep breath, reminding herself that this was not the first time she had been underestimated, nor would it be the last. It was in moments like these that Angela's resilience shone brightest. She refused to let the biases and assumptions of others define her or distract her from her goals. As she resumed her work, she silently channeled the energy of the encounter into her preparation. Her determination only grew stronger. She would walk into that meeting later and prove, yet again, why she was a force to be reckoned with. Unbeknownst to Angela, this small incident would set the stage for a series of events that would test her patience, character, and resolve in ways she had never anticipated. The lounge may have been a sanctuary, but the world outside its glass doors was still rife with challenges waiting to be confronted. For Angela Carter, every challenge was an opportunity to rise higher, and this moment was no exception. A battle with perception. Angela sat in the plush leather chair of the VIP lounge, her fingers gliding over the trackpad of her sleek laptop, trying to push aside the momentary sting of humiliation. Years of experience had taught her that dwelling on ignorance only gave it power. Yet, even for someone as resilient as Angela, it was hard to ignore the nagging question, why was she still seen this way? She took another sip of her coffee, gathering her thoughts and redirecting her focus. The upcoming meeting with Richard Hall was too important to let a momentary lapse of someone else's judgment cloud her mind. Angela's eyes fell on her carefully organized slides, an impeccable mix of growth metrics, future projections, and revolutionary strategies her company had developed. Her phone buzzed softly on the table, breaking her concentration. It was a message from her assistant, Kara. "Safe travels, boss. Remember, you've already won half the battle. Good luck with Richard. You've got this." Angela smiled slightly, her assistant's unwavering confidence in her abilities never failing to provide a small boost of energy. Kara knew how much Angela had prepared for this meeting. It wasn't just about securing funding, it was about proving, once again, that her company deserved a seat at the table alongside the tech giants who dominated the headlines. But even as she reaffirmed her purpose, Angela couldn't help but glance across the lounge, where Mr. Ross, the man who had mistaken her for cleaning staff, now lounged comfortably in his chair, barking orders into his phone with little regard for those around him. His entitlement was palpable, and it stirred a quiet frustration in Angela's chest. This wasn't about pride, it was about something deeper. It was about perception. Perception, Angela knew all too well, could build or destroy entire empires. It could decide who got funding, who got opportunities, and who got dismissed before they even opened their mouth. She had spent her entire career battling perceptions that she wasn't qualified enough, capable enough, or even deserving enough to sit at the table. Her skin color, her gender, her soft but firm voice, all of it had been questioned, doubted, and underestimated. And every single time, she had proven them wrong. A past that shaped her resolve. Angela's thoughts drifted back to her early days, growing up in a modest neighborhood in Atlanta. Her parents, Evelyn and Marcus Carter, were hard-working people, her mother a schoolteacher and her father a mechanic who spent long hours at the shop to make ends meet. From a young age, Angela had been instilled with values of hard work, humility, and perseverance. Her mother, an advocate for education, would sit Angela down at the kitchen table after dinner, encouraging her to dream beyond the confines of their community. "Angela, don't let anyone decide your worth for you," her mother had said one evening when Angela came home from school, visibly upset after a teacher dismissed her abilities in math class. "You decide that for yourself. And you prove them wrong, every single time." Those words had stayed with her through college, where she earned a scholarship to one of the country's top universities. Angela's degree in computer engineering had been the first milestone in a series of groundbreaking achievements. But it hadn't come without sacrifices. She often felt the weight of being the only one, the only Black woman in her classes, in group projects, in tech internship programs. She knew what it felt like to be invisible, even when standing right in front of people. Now, years later, sitting in the VIP lounge as a company president, Angela reflected on how far she had come. Still, moments like this, being mistaken for cleaning staff, reminded her that for all her success, there were still walls to be broken down. The lingering judgment. Angela closed her laptop, satisfied with her preparations. She decided to stretch her legs before the boarding announcement for her flight. As she moved toward the refreshment area, she passed Mr. Ross, who glanced at her and then, shockingly, spoke. "You handled that little misunderstanding earlier well," he said, in a tone that attempted to be cordial but was laced with condescension. "Must be frustrating, huh?" Angela stopped, her calm demeanor steady. She turned to face him, meeting his gaze head-on. "Frustrating?" Angela repeated, her voice measured and professional. "Yes, it can be frustrating when people make assumptions based on appearances rather than facts. But it's something I've grown accustomed to addressing, and overcoming, in every phase of my life." Mr. Ross shifted in his seat, clearly unprepared for her confident response. He opened his mouth as though to speak again, but Angela continued, her tone unwavering. "I've found that success speaks louder than assumptions. People can think whatever they want at first glance, but when the results are undeniable, there's no choice but to take notice." Angela didn't wait for a response. She turned on her heel and walked back to her seat, a quiet triumph settling in her chest. It wasn't about humiliating him, it was about making it clear that she refused to be reduced by anyone's small-minded perceptions. A turning point. Minutes later, the boarding announcement rang through the lounge. Angela gathered her belongings, slipping her laptop back into its case. She glanced once more at the room, her eyes locking with the same employee who had approached her earlier. The woman offered her a small, apologetic smile, a silent acknowledgement of the day's events. Angela returned the smile warmly, understanding that the woman had merely been caught in someone else's ignorance. Angela's flight was a quick one, but it gave her time to reflect. The investor meeting with Richard Hall was looming, and Angela felt more determined than ever. She reminded herself that everything she had built, her company, her reputation, her team, was not a product of chance. It was the result of tireless effort, strategic thinking, and an unshakable belief in her own abilities. When the plane touched down in New York, Angela was ready. The city's energy greeted her like an old friend, pushing her forward into the next challenge. She checked into her hotel, changed into a crisp black suit, and reviewed her notes one final time. As she stepped into the gleaming skyscraper where Richard Hall's office resided, Angela knew that this meeting could define the next chapter of her company's success. But more than that, it was a reminder, to herself and to the world, that she was exactly where she belonged. And this time, there would be no mistaking her. The investor meeting, a silent test. Angela Carter stepped into the lobby of the high-rise building, a place that reeked of power and influence. The floors gleamed like mirrors beneath her feet, and the air carried a mix of polished marble and freshly brewed espresso. This wasn't her first time in a setting like this. In fact, she had spent years earning her place in such prestigious rooms, yet every time she walked into an environment of this scale, she felt the world silently observing her, waiting for her to either fail or prove herself. As she approached the reception desk, the receptionist, a sharply dressed woman with red-framed glasses, looked her up and down with the briefest flash of hesitation. Angela had seen that look before. It was the unspoken question, "Who are you supposed to be?" "Good morning," Angela said in her calm, polished tone. "I'm here for my 10:30 meeting with Mr. Richard Hall." The receptionist's hesitation vanished. "Of course, Miss Carter. Mr. Hall is expecting you. The elevator to the top floor is to your left. Would you like me to notify his assistant?" "No need. Thank you." Angela took the elevator alone, the soft hum of classical music filling the space as she ascended to the executive level. She adjusted her suit jacket and checked her reflection in the mirrored panel. Confidence exuded from her posture, but deep down, she reminded herself of her mantra, "You've earned your place here. No one can take it away." The power in the room. The conference room was an expansive space with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a breathtaking view of New York City. At the center stood a long, gleaming mahogany table, surrounded by black leather chairs. At one end of the table sat Richard Hall, one of the most influential venture capitalists in the country. Tall, silver-haired, and impeccably dressed, he looked every bit the part of a man who controlled billions of dollars in investment capital. Richard rose as Angela entered, extending a hand with a courteous smile. "Ms. Carter, it's a pleasure to meet you. I've heard excellent things." "The pleasure is mine, Mr. Hall," Angela replied firmly, shaking his hand with a confidence that matched his. Angela was led to a seat directly across from him. At his side sat two of his advisors, both men, middle-aged and sharp-eyed, who wasted no time sizing her up as if trying to calculate her worth before she even opened her mouth. It was an unspoken challenge, one Angela had grown accustomed to. Richard leaned back in his chair, his fingers steepled as he spoke. "I appreciate you taking the time to meet with us today. I must say, Luminary Innovations has certainly caught our attention. I've reviewed the materials your team provided, and the numbers are impressive." Angela smiled slightly, grateful for Kara's meticulous preparation. "Thank you, Mr. Hall. I believe we've developed something truly transformative, and I'm excited to share our vision with you today. Then let's get started. The presentation, more than just slides." Angela opened her laptop and began her presentation. Her voice was steady, clear, and unwavering. Years of pitching her ideas had made her a master of the craft, but today's pitch carried an extra weight. This wasn't just a business opportunity, it was a defining moment, one that would elevate her company to global prominence or set it back significantly. Her slides painted a powerful story. She walked them through Luminary Innovations' journey, its modest beginnings, the technological breakthroughs her team had pioneered, and the exponential growth that had brought the company to this point. She presented financial metrics that showed impressive year-over-year gains, highlighted partnerships that validated her products, and shared projections that promised even greater success on a global scale. The two advisors occasionally exchanged glances, scribbling notes and whispering to one another, but Angela ignored the distraction. She remained focused on Richard, watching for subtle cues in his expression. A nod of approval here, a slight smile there, signs that her points were landing exactly as she intended. "And this," Angela said, transitioning to the final slide, "is what sets Luminary Innovations apart from the rest. We don't just build technology, we solve problems that matter. We empower businesses to operate smarter, faster, and more efficiently. This is not just growth, it's transformation." She closed her laptop and looked Richard directly in the eye. "I'm here today because I believe that with your partnership, we can take this vision to the next level. I'm not just asking for investment, I'm inviting you to be a part of something revolutionary." The room fell silent. The air buzzed with unspoken tension as Richard leaned back in his chair, his gaze fixed on Angela. He said nothing for a moment, as if weighing every word she had said. Finally, Richard broke the silence. "That's one hell of a pitch, Ms. Carter. I can see why you've come this far." Angela felt a flicker of relief, but she knew better than to celebrate prematurely. The unspoken challenge. Richard's advisors weren't quite as impressed. One of them, a bespectacled man named Harris, leaned forward. "Your projections are ambitious, Ms. Carter. Almost too ambitious. These kinds of numbers tend to raise red flags for us." Angela met his gaze, without flinching. "I understand your concern, Mr. Harris, but these projections aren't speculative. They're based on real-world data and rigorous analysis. We don't make promises we can't deliver." The other advisor, a balding man named Thomas, chimed in. "You're asking for a significant investment. With all due respect, you're still a relatively new player. Why should we believe Luminary can compete with companies who have decades of experience and billions in capital?" Angela's jaw tightened subtly, but she responded with poise. "Because those companies are stuck in the past. They're large, yes, but they're slow to adapt. At Luminary, we're agile, innovative, and bold. We don't just compete, we disrupt." Harris raised an eyebrow, clearly testing her. "You sound confident." "I am," Angela said firmly. "And confidence is earned, Mr. Harris. I've led Luminary from an idea on paper to a thriving company in less than 6 years. I didn't get here by luck. I got here by delivering results. The room fell quiet again. Richard glanced at his advisors, a silent signal that the discussion was over. Gentlemen, I think we've heard enough. Richard turned back to Angela, his expression unreadable. Ms. Carter, you're a rare force of nature in this industry. You don't just present data, you command attention. That's not easy to do, and I respect it. Angela inclined her head, her heart beating a little faster. I'll need a few days to discuss this with my team, but I'm very impressed. Expect to hear from us soon. Angela extended her hand. Thank you, Mr. Hall. I appreciate your time and consideration. I look forward to what's next. The exit and reflection. As Angela exited the building, the weight of the meeting lifted off her shoulders. She had delivered everything she intended, and no matter the outcome, she knew she had left an impression. The advisor's skepticism hadn't rattled her because she had spent years proving herself to people just like them. Stepping onto the bustling sidewalk, Angela allowed herself a small smile. The battle wasn't won yet, but she had fought valiantly. This meeting had tested her resolve, her confidence, and her ability to command respect, and once again, she had risen to the challenge. Somewhere in the city skyline ahead, a bright future awaited Luminary Innovations. And Angela Carter was ready to claim it. The aftermath, a test of resilience. Angela stepped out of the towering glass skyscraper, the brisk New York City wind brushing against her face. The afternoon sun hovered just above the skyline, casting golden reflections across the high-rise buildings. It was a moment that felt both still and alive, a pause before the storm of waiting that always followed high-stakes meetings. She flagged down a cab and slid inside, her laptop bag perched on her lap as the driver sped toward her hotel. For a few moments, Angela let herself sink into the quiet hum of the city streets, replaying the meeting in her mind. Every word she had spoken, every reaction from Richard Hall and his advisors, they were all catalogued in her memory like pieces of a puzzle. Richard's respect had been apparent, but Angela was no stranger to the silent games played in the upper echelons of business. Promises were never guarantees. Expect to hear from us soon could mean anything. It could mean they were impressed but hesitant. It could mean they had already decided to go another way. It could mean nothing at all. Angela leaned her head back against the cab seat, the exhaustion of the day starting to settle in. But deep within her, a fire still burned. She had done what she could, and now, the waiting game began. Back at the hotel, doubts and determination. Angela checked into the luxurious Midtown hotel where she was staying for the evening. The concierge greeted her warmly, but Angela barely noticed as she moved through the gleaming marble lobby and into the solitude of her suite. The room was pristine, with a view that overlooked the city skyline. Angela dropped her bags on the chair and collapsed onto the bed, staring up at the ceiling. Her phone buzzed. It was Kara. Kara, how did it go? I've been on edge all day. Angela, it went well. They were tough, but I was tougher. I gave them everything we had. Kara, I never doubted you, boss. Hall would be a fool to pass on this. Angela smiled softly. Kara's faith in her was unwavering, but Angela couldn't help but feel the weight of doubt creeping in. She had faced skepticism in the room, particularly from the advisors. While Richard Hall had seemed engaged, the lingering condescension from Harris and Thomas had stuck with her. She could almost hear the subtle dismissals in their tones. What's her company's track record? Too ambitious. Is she the real deal? Angela sat up, shaking her head as if to clear the voices. I am the real deal, she thought firmly. She couldn't afford to let self-doubt creep in. For years, Angela had battled for respect, not just as a businesswoman, but as a Black woman in a space that often refused to see her for her brilliance. She stood up and walked toward the window, gazing out over the sprawling city. The lights were beginning to flicker on across the buildings, a constellation of possibilities. She pressed her hands against the glass, her reflection staring back at her. Let them doubt me, she whispered to herself. Let them question me. But they'll see. The unexpected call. Hours passed. Angela worked on her laptop, responding to emails and reviewing other business updates. Her team was holding down the fort back at Luminary Innovations headquarters, and she took comfort in knowing she wasn't alone in the fight to grow the company. Just as the clock ticked towards 7 p.m., her phone rang. The caller ID flashed Richard Hall. Angela's heart skipped. She took a deep breath, steeling herself for whatever was about to come. "Hello, Mr. Hall," she answered, her voice steady. "Angela," Richard's deep voice came through the line, "I wanted to call you personally because I've been thinking about our meeting all afternoon." Angela sat on the edge of the bed, her hand tightening around her phone. "I appreciate that, Mr. Hall." "I'll cut to the chase," Richard continued. "Your pitch was excellent, and your company's metrics speak for themselves. But I've had some concerns raised by my advisors. They feel that while Luminary Innovations has huge potential, it's a risk compared to more established companies in the space." Angela's heart sank, but she said nothing, letting him finish. "That said," Richard's voice softened, "I'm inclined to go against their hesitations. I see something in you, Angela. A determination, a vision that others don't have. I built my career betting on people, not just numbers, and I believe in you." Angela's chest swelled with relief and pride, though she kept her tone measured. "Thank you, Mr. Hall. That means more than you know. I'll be wiring my team to draft the investment agreement tomorrow morning. Let's make this partnership official. I'm excited to see where Luminary Innovations goes next." Angela couldn't help the smile that spread across her face. "I promise you won't regret this decision, Mr. Hall. Thank you for your trust." "Don't thank me yet, Angela. Just make sure you prove me right," Richard said with a slight chuckle, before hanging up. As the call ended, Angela exhaled deeply, a mixture of relief, joy, and pride flooding through her. She had done it. She had broken through the skepticism and the doubts, proving once again that she was more than capable of claiming a seat at the table. A moment of reflection. Angela sank onto the couch, staring out at the New York skyline. She thought about every moment that had led her here, the late nights, the sacrifices, the battles she had fought silently and loudly. She thought about her parents, and how proud they would be to see their daughter closing multi-million-dollar deals in the heart of Manhattan. The moment at the airport lounge resurfaced in her mind, the mistaken identity, the silent judgment. How easy it would have been to shrink into herself, to allow someone else's perception to diminish her. But she hadn't. She had risen above it, as she always did. Angela stood and walked toward the window, raising her chin as she looked out over the city she had just conquered in her own way. "To everyone who doubted me," she said softly, "watch me." She picked up her phone and sent a single message to Kara. "We got it. Hall's in. Tomorrow, we make history." The night stretched on, but Angela felt no exhaustion. She felt only anticipation, for the future she was building, for the doors she was opening, and for the walls she would continue to break down for the women and underrepresented leaders coming after her. This was her moment, but it was only the beginning. Turning doubt into power. Angela's plane touched down in the city where it all began, Atlanta. The place she called home, the city that shaped her grit and grounded her dreams. The return flight had been a blur of reflections and plans. Angela Carter was more than ready for what came next. Richard Hall's commitment was monumental, but Angela knew this was just the first domino in a series of events that would change everything, not only for Luminary Innovations but for her entire industry. The weight of that responsibility was significant, but Angela had learned long ago to turn pressure into fuel. The drive from the airport to her company's headquarters was quiet, save for the hum of traffic and the occasional ping of emails. She stared out the window, passing through neighborhoods that held years of memories, both beautiful and painful. She was reminded of how far she had come and how much further she intended to go. Homecoming at headquarters. Luminary Innovations was housed in a sleek, modern building in Atlanta's tech district. The lobby buzzed with quiet excitement when Angela walked through the glass doors. Employees glanced up from their desks, offering smiles and nods of acknowledgement. Angela was more than just their CEO, she was their leader, their inspiration. Her assistant, Kara, appeared with her signature burst of energy, tablet in hand and a wide grin on her face. "Boss, I was ready to text the airport if you didn't walk in here soon." Angela laughed. "I'm here now. Is the team ready?" "Ready and waiting. I haven't seen them this hyped since we landed the Global Solutions account last year," Kara said as she fell into step beside Angela. "They're proud of you, you know." "We all are." Angela offered Kara a small, grateful smile. "This isn't just about me. It's about all of us. Every single person who's fought for this company and its vision." As they stepped into the main conference room, a wave of applause erupted. Her team, engineers, analysts, marketers, and administrators, stood and clapped as Angela walked in. There were cheers, whistles, and more than a few teary eyes. Angela felt her chest tighten, overwhelmed by the magnitude of the moment. She held up her hands to calm the noise, though a smile tugged at her lips. All right, she said with a laugh. "Thank you, but let's get to work." The team settled back into their chairs, but their energy was electric. Angela stepped to the front of the room, where a digital screen displayed the Luminary Innovations logo and the words, "Richard Hall Partnership, the future begins now." "First of all, I want to thank every single one of you," Angela began. Her voice was calm but firm, carrying the authority of someone who meant every word. "What we've accomplished so far has been nothing short of incredible, but I want you to know this, we're just getting started." She looked around the room, locking eyes with her team members one by one. "Yesterday, I secured an investment that will allow us to scale in ways we couldn't have imagined just a few years ago. But this isn't just about money. It's about what we represent. It's about proving to everyone who's ever doubted us, doubted our talent, our vision, or our ability, that we belong here." The room was silent, every person hanging on her words. "We're not just another tech company. We're disruptors. Innovators. And now, with this investment, we're going global. We're going to hire the brightest minds, expand our operations, and deliver solutions that the world has never seen before. This is our time, and I want you all to remember something, we earned this." A low murmur of agreement spread across the room. Angela's words carried weight because they came from someone who had lived them. "I've been in rooms where people underestimated me, where they looked past me because of the way I look or who I am. But guess what?" Angela's voice rose with quiet intensity. "Their doubt became my fuel. Their skepticism pushed me harder. And that's exactly the mindset we're going to take into this next phase. Every time someone tells us we can't, we prove them wrong." The room erupted into applause again, but this time, it wasn't just noise, it was a collective declaration of confidence and purpose. Turning vision into action. The meeting turned into a brainstorming session, with teams huddling to outline the next steps for Luminary's expansion. Angela moved between groups, offering insights, answering questions, and encouraging ideas. She thrived in these moments, watching her team's creativity blossom, knowing that her leadership had unlocked their potential. By the time the meeting wrapped up, the sun was beginning to set. Angela stood in the doorway of the conference room, watching as her team filed out with determination etched into their faces. They believed in her vision because they believed in her. Kara appeared beside her again, a knowing look in her eyes. "So, what's next, boss?" Angela turned to her assistant, a spark of excitement in her expression. "We work harder. We hire smarter. We build better. And we make sure that no one can ignore us ever again." Kara grinned. "I like the sound of that." The unexpected interview. The following morning, Angela's phone buzzed with a call from an unfamiliar number. She picked it up, her curiosity piqued. "Ms. Carter, this is Camille Norris from Business Insider. I'd love to schedule an interview with you for a feature we're putting together." It's about women CEOs reshaping the tech industry. Angela paused for just a moment, the weight of the request settling on her. Women like her weren't often the center of features like this. I'd be happy to discuss it, Camille, Angela replied smoothly. What's the angle? Your story, Ms. Carter. How you went from a startup founder to a global player. And, well, we heard about the airport incident. Angela's lips tightened slightly, though her voice remained calm. I'd be happy to share my story, my whole story, not just one moment. That's exactly what we're looking for, Camille said. The struggles, the breakthroughs, and how you overcame the doubts of others. Angela smiled faintly. Send me the details. I'll make time. After hanging up, Angela leaned back in her chair. She thought about the airport lounge, the mistaken assumptions, the quiet humiliation. That incident could have been just another moment of frustration, another story left untold. But now, it would be something bigger, a symbol of how far she had come and how far others could go if they refused to let perception define them. Legacy in motion. That evening, as Angela stood outside Luminary Innovations headquarters, she looked up at the building illuminated against the night sky. It wasn't just a building, it was a monument to resilience, innovation, and unwavering belief. Angela Carter had walked through fire to get here, doubted, underestimated, and tested at every turn. Yet she had emerged stronger, sharper, and unshakable. Her story wasn't just her own anymore. It was the story of every young woman, every person of color, and every underdog who dared to dream. With one last look at her company's logo glowing brightly above, Angela whispered softly to herself. This is only the beginning. And she believed it.